Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are diving into Andrew Kagan's Random Technical News You Can Possibly Use newsletter, the one from February 21st, 2025. I mean, this thing is packed. It's Azure, Microsoft 365, even a bit of quantum computing. Get ready to have your mind blown. There's a tool that lets you find data just by typing plain English. No, seriously.
Yeah, this newsletter is incredible. Just a ton of stuff happening. Basically, every corner of the tech world is going crazy with all the new developments.
Okay, let's break it down. First up, Azure. Microsoft is making a big deal about these performance upgrades with their SQL hyperscale update.
Yeah, it looks pretty impressive. This is going to be huge for anyone running these big databases. Azure is already like a major player in high-performance computing, HPC, like all those scientific simulations and modeling, that kind of thing. And this update just like solidifies that even more.
For sure. But okay, for those of us who aren't simulating galaxies or anything, there's some new cost management updates too. Always appreciate keeping the cloud costs in check. But hold on. Azure AI Foundry Labs. This is where it gets really interesting.
Definitely. It seems like they're really pushing the limits of AI research there. Not just like the practical applications, but, the bleeding edge. This could lead to some really groundbreaking advancements.
All right, let's move on to Microsoft 365. Microsoft Intra seems to be all the rage now. Verified ID and zero trust security features galore.
I'm really interested in this verified ID thing. Like, imagine proving your identity online securely without dealing with a ton of passwords. That would make things so much easier.
Absolutely. And for the IT admins out there who are struggling with all these Windows apps, there's a new guide on using Intune for installations. I mean, anything that can simplify that process is a lifesaver.
Totally. And for the data folks, there's a new way to get analytics for your SharePoint tenants. It's called Microsoft Graph Data Connect. So it seems like with 365, Microsoft is really focused on data security, management, and analytics.
Yeah, it makes sense. They're hitting all the key areas. Okay, next up is Power Platform and Dynamics 365. Power Automate now has passwordless RPA. That's robotic process automation, by the way.
Right, so no more messing around with passwords for your automated tasks.
Exactly. But get this. There's this new data exploration agent for model-driven apps. And you can actually find records using natural language, like straight out of Star Trek.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Imagine typing, "Show me all the customers who bought product X last month," and the system understands you.
That's wild. It seems like we're getting closer and closer to a future where anyone can work with data, no matter their technical skills.
I know, right? And for those who want to stay up to date on all things Power Platform, there's the monthly community call.
Oh, yeah, that's always a great resource.
Okay, let's shift gears to DevOps, SRE, and infrastructure. First up, GitHub Copilot is having a release party. Even more AI assistance for your coding projects.
Yeah, it's like having a genius coder looking over your shoulder and helping you out.
Pretty much. But here's an interesting one. There's an article about the government pushing for WebAssembly security over eBPF. Is WebAssembly about to become the new standard for secure computing?
It's definitely something to keep an eye on. WebAssembly has some advantages for security, but there are some challenges too, like adoption and whether developers are familiar with it.
And for anyone deep into infrastructure as code, or IAC for short, there's this cool interview with the founder of Pulumi.
Pulumi, yeah, that's a big one.
They're talking about all the ins and outs of managing infrastructure with code, which is, becoming more and more critical in the cloud world.
It's a must-read for anyone who wants to understand IAC, especially for managing complex infrastructure at scale. Okay, let's dive into the world of data, analytics, and AI. It seems like everywhere you look, it's all about LLMs, large language models.
It really is LLM mania out there. But this newsletter actually has a really great guide. It's all about training, fine-tuning, and RAG, retrieval augmented generation. If you're working with LLMs, this guide is a must-read.
Yeah, and there's this insightful comparison of prompt engineering versus fine-tuning for LLMs. It highlights those different strategies for getting the most out of these models. Like, do you craft the perfect prompt or fine-tune the model's parameters?
And Microsoft's putting these concepts into action with Copilot and Fabric, streamlining those data engineering and data science workflows. It's like having an AI assistant for your data.
I love that. And for the low-code, no-code folks, SQL Database and Fabric might be worth checking out. It aims to simplify data interactions so anyone can build data-driven solutions.
That sounds pretty cool. And Microsoft Purview is getting a unified catalog. That could be a game changer for organizations dealing with data sprawl.
Oh, absolutely. A unified view of your data is essential for good governance and security. Speaking of security, let's move on to security, compliance, and privacy. This newsletter highlights how Gen AI, that's generative AI, is changing the security landscape. There's this really informative session on the key security considerations for Gen AI.
It's crazy how AI is impacting security every single week. We really need to stay ahead of the curve and understand the risks and opportunities.
I agree, and it's encouraging to see the focus on proactive and behavioral approaches to cyber readiness, moving beyond just reacting to attacks, and towards anticipating threats and building resilient systems.
That's a welcome change. For the Microsoft Sentinel users out there, Sentinel is their CM platform, by the way. There's news about repositories. So now you can manage your CM content like a pro.
That's great. Efficiently organizing and deploying security rules and configurations is so important.
And for anyone curious about automatic attack disruption in Microsoft Defender XDR, there's an Ask Me Anything session you won't want to miss.
Definitely worth checking out. All right, let's talk about learning and certifications. It seems like GenAOps is the hot topic right now, and there's a two-part playbook to get you up to speed.
GenAOps is the intersection of AI and IT operations, right?
That's right.
It sounds like a critical area for anyone managing complex IT systems.
For sure. And for the Visual Studio Code fans, there's an introduction to the Microsoft Teams toolkit, so developers can build and deploy Teams app more efficiently.
I'm sure that'll come in handy. And for those who want to learn Kubernetes and EKS Elastic Kubernetes Service, there's a beginner crash course using Pulumi.
That's awesome. Kubernetes is essential for modern application deployment.
Okay, let's wrap things up with industry news and trends. This is where things get really exciting. Microsoft is making headlines with Majorana 1, their first quantum computing chip.
Wow.
This is huge. It could completely revolutionize computing.
It's still early days for quantum computing, but the possibilities are mind-blowing. Imagine solving problems that are just impossible for classical computers. We could see breakthroughs in so many fields: drug discovery, materials, science, AI.
I read that Majorana 1 uses a new kind of qubit. It's called a topological qubit, and it's supposed to be much more stable and less error-prone than traditional qubits.
That's incredible. If they can achieve that level of stability, it could really speed up the development of practical quantum applications.
We'll have to see what happens. Now, for something a bit closer to home for many listeners, there's a discussion about whether English could replace Python as the top programming language.
Oh, wow. Coding in plain English, that would be a game changer.
Right. It sounds almost too good to be true.
Python has become so popular because it's easy to read and use. But the idea of programming in natural language is really appealing. It could make coding accessible to so many more people.
I wonder how a language like that would handle all the complexities of software development. But hey, if AI can help us find data using plain English, maybe it can help us code that way too.
It's definitely possible. Speaking of AI pushing boundaries, Perplexity AI is making waves by drastically reducing the cost of AI research. This could be huge for the entire industry.
Absolutely. Lowering the cost of research could really democratize AI and fuel a ton of innovation.
I agree. And on a more practical note, Microsoft and the GSA, the General Services Administration, have partnered to improve security and cut costs for government agencies.
That's a great partnership. It really shows how important it is for the public and private sectors to work together on cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's great to see that kind of collaboration.
I know, right? We've covered so much today. Performance upgrades in Azure, quantum computing with Majorana 1. This newsletter was packed with exciting stuff.
It really was. What stood out to you the most?
Honestly, that data exploration agent for model-driven apps just blew my mind. Finding data using plain English, that's next level.
Yeah, it feels like we're changing how we interact with data.
For sure.
So with all this crazy advancement happening, what tech are you most excited about? Or even a little concerned about?
That's a good question. I'm definitely excited about the potential of quantum computing. But it also makes me think about the ethics of it all. It's such a powerful technology. We need to be careful about how it's used.
That's a really important point. As technology keeps advancing, we need to consider its impact on society. It's not just about what we can do, but what we should do.
Absolutely. We have a responsibility to make sure these advancements benefit everyone. Well, I think we've made it through this week's tech news. If any of these topics caught your attention, we'll have links to all the resources in the show notes.
Definitely check them out. The tech world is constantly changing. There's always something new to discover.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those haha moments coming.